Despite its somber mission of locking away people society had branded defective and dangerous, the colony for epileptics and feeble-minded had an undeniable rustic charm. Like many such institutions, it functioned as a working farm. There were cows, pigs, and chickens, and orchards and gardens that produced rich harvests of fruits and vegetables. The landscape was dotted with newly constructed residence halls, recreation buildings, light industrial factories, and medical facilities. The colony system that gathered the feeble-minded in settings of this kind served several purposes. The rustic surroundings, in keeping with the latest ideas about treatment of peoples with mental defects. Out in the country, the thinking went far from the stresses of big city life. Inmates would be soothed by the perfume of pine and cedar. At the same time, having a working farm and factories allowed the colony to keep its inmates productively occupied. There were also financial advantages. Inmates were able to contribute to their own upkeep and reduce the burden on taxpayers. When states throughout the South first established colonies for the feeble-minded, legislators and administrators hoped they would become financially self-sufficient, which would allow them to expand and take in ever large numbers of mentally deficient inmates, but none achieved that level of economic success. Carrie was admitted to the colony as patient 1692. Like her mother, she received a thorough examination, and the colony began to assemble a detailed file on her. The history and clinical notes drawn up on January 4th, 1924, stated that Carrie was 17, in good general health, well-nourished, and free of communicable diseases. She had no paralysis or deformity, talked distinctly, and had good teeth and tonsils. The next day, Dr. John Bell conducted a physical examination. Carrie was 5 foot 4 inches tall and weighed 134 pounds. Dr. Bell noted her low, narrow forehead. A few days later, a Weizerman test for syphilis came back negative. Carrie's admissions records repeated the critical assessment the Dobbses and others had made about her. They stated that nothing is known for her birth or early development. But despite that lack of information, the file went on to say that she has always been subnormal. In a section on social history and moral reaction, Carrie was described as untruthful and dishonest, and labeled a moral delinquent for having given birth to an illegitimate child. In evaluating Carrie's intellect, the colony noted that she had attended school 5 years and attained the 6th grade. Though her file did not mention her grades or other evaluations, the colony only observed that she took proper notice of things and recognized colors. The only mental assessment that mattered, however, was the Binet-Simon test that she was given on arrival, the same one her mother had taken. Based on it, the colony determined that Carrie had a mental age of 9, and it designated her a middle-grade moron. The Binet-Simon test that Carrie was given was not an accurate measure of intelligence, and its creator never intended it to be. It had been invented in 1905, and the Paris School Commission, Alfred Binet, director of the Sorbonne's psychology laboratory, to develop a way to identify mentally challenged children. Binet and other psychologists, Theodore Simon, devised a series of questions and tasks, such as describing how two objects were similar or repeating numbers from memory. Binet and Simon admitted not putting a great deal of thought into deciding what to ask. One might almost say it matters very little what the tests are, so as long as numbers are on the test, Binet said. Binet and Simon were attempting to create a test that would identify those children who could benefit from extra help in the classroom. They established a scale to rank children's performance, identifying a mental age that could differ significantly from a child's chronological age. Bennett insisted that the test was not an intelligence test and that it should not be used to identify students who were inherently less mentally able. He intended his scale to identify in order to help and improve. Harvard biological professor Stephen Jay Gould observed, quote, not to label in order to limit. Bennett was troubled when teachers wrote off students as inherently unintelligent. There was neither sympathy nor respect, he said, and that their intemperate language leads them to say such things in their presence as, "This is a child who will never amount to anything. He is poorly endowed. He is not intelligent at all." How often that I have heard these imprudent words. When the Binet-Simon test arrived at the United States, it was transformed. The psychologists, academics, and institutional administrators who embraced it were not looking, as Simon and Binet had been, for ways to identify children who needed extra educational help. They wanted a method of sorting people into inflexible categories that would be presented with the trappings of science. The man who launched this transformation was Henry Goddard of the Vinland Training School for Feeble-Minded Girls and Boys. Goddard discovered the Binet-Simon test in Europe and brought it back to America. He began administering the test at the Vinland School, hoping it would be able to instantly assess and categorize students in the same way Vinland's staff did after getting to know them over time. When he reviewed the results, Goddard was convinced he had found what he was looking for. "The tests," he said, the tests do come amazingly near what we feel to be the truth in regard to the mental status of any child tested. Goddard championed the Binet-Simon and presented it as what it was not intended to be, a tool for measuring inherent intelligence. He used the test in its new American form to create a hierarchical, unidimensional vision of intelligence. Goddard argued that intelligence levels were characteristics that people were born with and limited by. Each human being has a potentiality for a definite amount of intelligence, and beyond that point, all efforts at education are useless, he said.